It's telling, isn't it? The government will not show up to defend their own legislation. And why would they want to speak on this bill? Don't be fooled by the Orwellian title, is the first thing I'd say to the House. The Social Services Legislation Amendment Payment Integrity Bill. This is a bill to cut the age pension. This is a bill to cut Newstart. It's not about payment integrity. They may as well call it, as a member for Macquarie was saying, the drive-up poverty bill. Only a government led by a cheap, failed marketing guy could come up with payment integrity as a description for a bill that cuts the age pension and cuts Newstart. What this bill does is cruel. It cuts the age pension supplement to pensioners who are overseas for 6 weeks or more. It cuts $185 million from the pockets of pensioners. That equates to, I think, for someone on the single base rate of the pension supplement, the grand total of a cut of $11.88 per week for that single pensioner. I mean, well done to the government. Well done you. Even for this government, that is a mean-spirited, nasty little cut. The main targets of these cuts, of course, are pensioners with families living overseas, many thousands of whom reside in my electorate. People who came to this country in the 1950s and 60s from Greece, from Italy, and then later from Serbia, from Vietnam, from countries all over the world, who've contributed to this country for the whole of their working lives. They paid their taxes, they put in, and now they might want to visit their families overseas in retirement. They want to spend quality time with their families, even later in their lives. But this government's bill makes it harder to do so. Now, many people might listen to this and think, well, how many pensioners can afford to go overseas for 6 weeks? If they can afford that, surely we could take $11 off them. Well, the truth is, if you're a pensioner, you would have to save up for a very long time for the flights to get overseas, so it makes sense to go and stay with family for 2, 3, 4 months. And often people travel to care for the grandkids overseas when a new baby is born or a sick relative. And indeed, in that regard, I talked about this at a recent seniors morning tea that I had. People were horrified. The government hasn't told people about this bill. It's been buried in the background on the notice paper for some years now. But it's not just migrants. It's people born in this country, because we're a globalised society now. Children of pensioners move overseas and get jobs, fall in love, get married, live in London or wherever they may be, and they have children. And of course the pensioners of Australia want to go and visit their children and connect with their grandkids. Pensioners are not rich. Staying for 2 or 3 or 4 months means saving on airfares, and often, of course, those airfares are paid by their kids. But they still have the bills to pay at home when they're not here. They still have the council rates. They still have the electricity bills, most of which is the connection fees for many pensioners. So why is the government doing this? They're cutting $11.88 a week from vulnerable people for a few weeks of the year to save $185 million by attacking pensioners, and yet this very year the government voted themselves a tax cut of $16,000 a year. So that says everything you need to know about the government's priorities. Everyone on the government benches gets a tax cut of $16,000 a year, and now we're debating a bill to cut $11.88 from pensioners. This is a government with the wrong priorities. Their budget surplus that we hear so much about is built entirely on these kinds of cuts, on attacking the most vulnerable people in Australia. The $1.6 billion cut to the NDIS, for example. Now, there's two possibilities. Possibility one, the Liberals are just mean and don't care. Or possibility two, they think now the election's out the way, they can get away with it. Well, the truth is, I think, probably both are true. The fact that pensioners travel overseas for an extended period of time is the reality of life in modern Australia. This is the kind of society we are now. Pensioners don't just sit at home, government, waiting to die. They go overseas to see their grandkids, to be with family, to visit the place they have not been able to go to for 40 years, and yes, they might want to stay for 4 months in the village where they were born and grew up. Cutting the pension in this way is an attack on the Australian way of life. You may not see it, but we will make sure that every pensioner, if this bill passes, knows. And of course, the Liberals' efforts to cut the age pension are not new. This, in fact, is the third time they've tried to make this cut to the age pension supplement. In 2017, I'll give them this, at least they were a bit more honest. The bill that was buried in at that point was called an Omnibus Savings and Childcare Bill. You know, at least it had savings in the title. In 2017, they also introduced it astoundingly into another bill that sat on the notice paper, this time called Payment Integrity, but it was never debated. The Liberals have been too scared to debate this bill the whole of the last term, even though they had this cut to the age pension sitting on the notice paper for years. Of course, it died on the notice paper in the last parliament, but like political necrophiles they are, they just couldn't stop themselves and reintroduced it to the House, reanimated it. Let's just record for the House the Liberals' age pension cuts, the history thereof. In 2014, they tried to cut pension indexation, a cut that would have meant pensioners be forced to live on $80 a week less within 10 years. In 2014, they cut $1 billion from pensioner concessions, support designed to help pensioners with the cost of living. In 2014, they also axed the $900 seniors supplement to self-funded retirees receiving the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card. In 2014, it was a good year 2014 for them, wasn't it? They tried to reset deeming rates thresholds, a cut that would have seen 500,000 part pensioners made worse off. In 2015, they did that famous deal with the Greens political party to cut the pension to around 370 pensioners by as much as $12,000 a year by fiddling the pension assets test. And then, not stopping there, in 2016 they tried to cut the pension to around 190,000 pensioners, as, again, this early version of the plan to limit overseas travel for pensioners to 6 weeks. In 2016 they tried to cut the pension for over 1.5 million Australians by scrapping the energy supplement for new pensioners. The government's own figures, this is their own admission, showed this would have left over 563,000 Australians currently receiving a pension or allowance worse off. Over 10 years, in excess of 1.5 million pensioners would have been worse off. They then spent 5 long years trying to increase the pension age to 70. I think when the current Prime Minister did in Malcolm Turnbull, he freaked out because he realised that that wasn't exactly popular in real Australia, and they dropped that one for now, may well return. And then they took 5 consecutive RBA rate cuts before they even adjusted the deeming rates. And then that was only after a concerted campaign from seniors groups and Labor.